I never thought a nod from a bouncer would change my life, but that's exactly what happened on a random Thursday night in October when Darius started walking me to my car after every shift, and I realized that sometimes protection means something entirely different than what you think it does. Let me back up. I'm Owen, 26 years old, working as a junior accountant at a firm downtown. My life was spreadsheets and client meetings and the occasional drink with coworkers who talked about their kids and mortgages while I nodded along, feeling like I was watching life happen to other people. I'd been out to myself for 3 years, but hadn't told anyone at work. Hadn't really told anyone, period, except for a few failed dating app conversations that fizzled before they started. I was living in this weird limbo, not closeted exactly, but not really living either. The bar was called Meridian, this trendy place in the arts district that attracted a mixed crowd. I started going there because it felt safer than the explicitly gay bars. Less pressure, less expectation. I could blend into the background with my bourbon and my phone, watching people live their lives while I sat in mine like it was a waiting room. Every Thursday, like clockwork. It became my routine. My therapist would probably have something to say about that. Darius was always working Thursdays. I noticed him immediately, the way you notice a lighthouse when you're lost at sea. He was tall, probably 6'3", with dark skin that seemed to glow under the bar's amber lighting, and these incredibly kind eyes that didn't match the intimidating set of his shoulders. He wore the standard bouncer uniform, black shirt stretched across his chest, but there was something gentle in the way he checked IDs, the way he'd smile at the nervous college kids and wave the regulars through with a nod. I'd been going to Meridian for maybe 2 months when he first really looked at me. I was leaving around midnight, a little buzzed but not drunk, and he was standing by the door scrolling through his phone. When I approached, he glanced up and our eyes met for just a second longer than necessary. "Have a good night," he said, and his voice was deeper than I expected, warm like honey in tea. "You too," I managed, and felt my face heat up as I pushed through the door into the cool October air. The next Thursday, same thing, except this time he said, "See you next week?" Like a question, like he'd noticed my pattern. "Probably," I said, trying to sound casual, like my heart wasn't suddenly racing. "Drive safe," he said, and there was something in his expression I couldn't quite read. I thought about that interaction all week, replayed it during boring meetings, while I was brushing my teeth, lying in bed at night staring at my ceiling. It was pathetic, really, how much real estate this stranger occupied in my brain. But there was something about the way he looked at me, like he actually saw me, that made me feel more alive than I'd felt in months. The third Thursday, everything changed. I was leaving later than usual, almost 1 a.m., and the crowd had thinned out. Darius was outside now, standing under the streetlight, and when I walked out, he straightened up. "Owen, right?" he said. My stomach flipped. He knew my name. "Yeah, how did you use your card at the bar. I pay attention." He smiled, and it transformed his whole face, made him look younger, less like a wall of muscle, and more like a person. "I'm Darius." "I know," I said, then immediately felt stupid. "I mean, I've seen your name tag." "Where'd you park?" The garage on 5th, about 3 blocks." He nodded slowly, looking down the street. "Mind if I walk with you? My shift just ended." Everything in my body went electric. "Sure, yeah, that'd be nice." We walked in silence for the first block, our footsteps echoing off the buildings. The city felt different at this hour, quieter, like it was holding its breath. I kept sneaking glances at him, trying to figure out what this was, what was happening. "You always come alone," he said finally. It wasn't a question. "Yeah, I like the bar, good atmosphere." "But you never talk to anyone, just sit in the corner booth with your phone." I felt exposed, seen in a way that made me uncomfortable. I'm not really good at the whole social thing. "Or maybe you're waiting for something." He looked at me then, really looked at me, and I felt like he could see every secret I'd ever kept. Someone. I didn't know what to say to that. We'd reached the parking garage and I fumbled for my keys, my hands shaking slightly. "This is me," I said, pointing vaguely at the entrance. "I'll walk you to your car." "You don't have to." "I want to." We took the elevator to the 3rd floor in silence, the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. My car was in the back corner, and when we reached it, I turned to face him, my back against the driver's side door. He was standing close, closer than necessary, and I could smell his cologne, something woody and clean. "Why are you doing this?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "Because I see you, Owen. Every Thursday, sitting there alone, looking like you're trying to disappear, and I don't want you to disappear." He reached out slowly, giving me time to move away, and brushed his fingers against my hand. "I've been working up the courage to talk to you for weeks." "You're a bouncer," I said stupidly. "You're not afraid of anything." He laughed, soft and low. "I'm terrified right now, terrified I'm reading this wrong, terrified you're going to get in your car and never come back." "I'll come back," I said, "next Thursday." "What about tomorrow?" My breath caught. Tomorrow's Friday. "I know what day it is. I'm asking if you want to get coffee or dinner, or just sit somewhere and talk like normal people instead of a bouncer and a guy who nurses one bourbon for 3 hours." I felt myself smiling, really smiling, for the first time in I don't know how long. "I'd like that. Dinner tomorrow." He smiled back, and then his hand was on my cheek, warm and gentle, and he was leaning in, and I was rising up on my toes to meet him, and when our lips touched, it felt like every romance novel cliche I'd ever rolled my eyes at. Fireworks, electricity, coming home. When we broke apart, he rested his forehead against mine. "I'm going to walk you to your car every Thursday from now on," he said, "and every other night you're there, just so you know." "Why?" I asked again, needing to hear it. "Because you deserve to be protected, to be seen, to be chosen." He pulled back just enough to look into my eyes. "And because from the first time I saw you, I wanted to be the one doing those things." That was 4 months ago. Now it's February, and Darius still walks me to my car, except now it's our car because I moved into his place last month. We still go to Meridian on Thursdays, but now we go together. And instead of sitting alone in the corner, I sit at the bar and wait for his shift to end, talking to the bartenders who've become our friends, feeling like I'm finally part of the world instead of watching it through glass. Last week, one of the regulars asked Darius why he always walks me out when he doesn't do that for anyone else. Darius looked at me, that same gentle expression on his face that I've come to know so well, and said, "Because he's not anyone else. He's everything else." I think about that first walk to my car all the time. How scared I was. How sure I was that I was misreading everything. How certain I was that someone like Darius couldn't possibly see someone like me. I think about all the Thursdays I almost didn't go, all the times I almost convinced myself to stay home, to stay safe, to stay invisible, and I'm so grateful I didn't. Because it turns out that sometimes the scariest thing is also the most necessary thing. Sometimes you have to let yourself be seen, even when every instinct tells you to hide. Sometimes the person who's supposed to protect everyone else decides that you're the one worth protecting most. Darius proposed last Thursday, right there in the parking garage, 3rd floor, back corner, the same spot where he first kissed me. He got down on one knee under those buzzing fluorescent lights and said, "I want to walk you to your car for the rest of my life." I said yes before he even finished the question. And when we kissed, surrounded by concrete and the smell of motor oil and the distant sound of the city, it felt just as perfect as that first time. Maybe more so, because now I know what I didn't know then. That being seen isn't something to fear, it's something to cherish. It's everything. I still go to therapy, and my therapist was right. I was using that bar as a waiting room, but I wasn't waiting for my life to start. I was waiting for the courage to let someone in. And when Darius walked me to my car that first night, he wasn't just protecting me from the darkness of a city street. He was protecting me from the darkness I'd built around myself, brick by brick, fear by fear. Now, when I look at him, standing by the door at Meridian, nodding at the college kids and waving through the regulars, I see him differently. I see the gentleness that lives underneath the intimidating exterior. I see the man who noticed a lonely accountant nursing bourbon in the corner and decided that person was worth knowing, worth choosing, worth loving. And every Thursday, when his shift ends and he walks me to our car, I'm reminded that sometimes the most extraordinary love stories start with the simplest gestures. A nod, a name remembered, a question asked, A hand extended in a parking garage, offering not just safety, but the possibility of being fully, completely, courageously seen. That's what Darius gave me. Not just his love, but permission to be loved. Permission to take up space. Permission to stop disappearing. And I'm never going invisible again.